Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth Podcast. I'm Jack Smith.
And I'm Anish Gupta.
And as you can tell, Srikar's not with us today. You know, he was the other day put on the injury report, a questionable game time decision came down to that last 90 minutes. He was going through warm-ups and just couldn't go today. So we're sorry for any of you guys that had him in your starting lineups. You're going to have to try and find a replacement for him. Just dealing with a little cough. We told him not to push it. We're just going to do this episode, just us two. But when it comes to the fantasy segment and his picks, we'll give you those at the end of the episode. But Anish, just you and I, how are you doing? And how was your football weekend?
My football weekend was a great bounce back. I feel like it kind of happened in a great way. Obviously, to start off Thursday night, Carson Wentz beat Jack's Jets, makes me feel happy. And then on Sunday, like I mentioned on the pod, the biggest game of the Browns season. I thought it was the second biggest reg season game for Baker Mayfield, and they showed out. They won. Best performance on all three phases. It was a great win. And then Monday was sad just because, my favorite college quarterback had to be just absolutely hoed by the refs. But, hopefully I don't get fined. Don't fine me, Tony Corrente. But yeah, refs kind of sucked in that game. And Pittsburgh, I want to say the other word, but I'm just going to bleep it out. Berg, you know what I'm talking about, starts with an S, ends in IT. But yeah, that team won. That kind of sucked. But yeah, otherwise overall good.
If they do fine you, it would probably be more than Aaron Rodgers' $14,000.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys follow us on IG, but if you saw our comment, I had commented like he damn near got away scot-free. I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
especially considering that he got the same amount as Alan Lazard, and the Packers got fined like $300,000. And it's funny when you put it up.
Did you see that CeeDee Lamb got fined?
So I mean, there's an explanation for that. It's because like incrementally, CeeDee Lamb has done this multiple times, so it gets to more. But just like putting them up side by side, it's like $14,000 for what Aaron Rodgers did, $20,000 for having your jersey untucked. My football weekend a little uneventful. It was Jets played on Thursday. Mike White got hurt. Game was over by then. But Josh Johnson actually had a pretty good game. That's why I wouldn't say that they would have won with Mike White because that might have been the worst defensive performance I've ever seen, which is crazy considering that I said the exact same thing 2 weeks ago against the Patriots. But there were some flashes. I think Michael Carter looked good. Elijah Moore finally had possibly a breakout game.
Oh, yeah.
And the Jets, the offense actually looks like something, which is for the first time in like 2 or 3 years. You can actually start to say that. Darnold went down with injury, but I'm not sure how much the injury would have mattered for his status as the starting quarterback.
You never want to prey on injuries, but did you see the tweet that said he couldn't even complete the fracture?
Yeah.
Like I'm not even gonna look, I wish him nothing but the best. I know it's, it sucks to see someone go down, but I did have a chuckle on that tweet.
I went, if I didn't love Sam Darnold as much as I do, I would have laughed at that one.
Yeah.
It's just tough, especially the first couple of weeks when he actually looked good. I thought there was the potential for a good season, but we're moving on from that. They signed Cam Newton today, so it looks like they're moving on from him as well.
We're not going to talk about USC, Arizona State, or you sure you don't want to mention that one?
Did you? Oh, you know what? I was actually going to be at Arizona or USC Cal this weekend, but you guys don't have enough scholarship players to play the game.
They got postponed. Like, I'm actually glad because I am home this weekend, as you can tell by the setup. So I am not going to miss that game, which is good. I believe it's December 4th.
December 4th. So yeah, I'll be there December 4th. But
we should put up a poll for the IG. We should see who they pick.
I mean, you guys lost to Arizona. I don't even care that you didn't have.
We have some Cal followers, so hey, if we win the poll, who knows? Maybe we win the actual match.
That's true. Yeah. But it was an interesting football weekend. There was a lot of games that we're not going to talk about in our takeaways that I feel like we should touch on in the intro because, first of all, the Bills lost to the Jags, and you may have thought like that was probably the craziest game of the week. But the fact that the Cowboys got blown out by the Broncos we're back to that. We're back to that parody in the NFL. Just an absolute bananas week. It was crazy. You can't lose to the Jags or the Broncos.
Cost me $166 on my 5-team parlay. That was the only one that didn't hit.
Which one? Broncos or Jags?
It was the Broncos one. I had because Dallas was 7-0 against the spread at the time, and I was like, all right, I'm going to take them. And everything else hit because I did take the Browns money line. that was the first time I ever bet on them.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, everything else hit.
I can't believe you did that.
I know. First time I ever bet on my own team, and because it was the biggest game, and I was like, you know what?
I know, but I mean, you're so infamous for the curse.
Yeah, it worked out.
Well, You want to start getting into our takeaways?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We can quickly touch on what Srikar's takeaway would have been, and it relates to the Browns. I believe what he said was the Bengals and Browns are moving in opposite directions. It kind of felt like once the season started, they were kind of moving in one way. The Bengals were going up from what we expected, and then the Browns were moving down. But it feels like over the last couple of weeks, you can almost say the reverse. And it seems like this game, which I'm sure he would have argued was the turning point for that.
Yep.
And I know it makes you happy. It also makes me happy because I can actually like finally put some faith into the Browns. I can actually pick them.
Let's not get, because I don't want your curse to little trickle in on Cleveland. So
hey,
just keep it in the back of your mind.
Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, if they win, no, if they win, I will let you talk all the smack in the world. You can say you were right about them. I will just wait till that happens.
I will do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know you have faith in them. I'm trying to put faith in them. I just don't want to jinx them. With this team, there's just so many things. But I think Srikar's takeaway was spot on when I heard about it. Especially, week 9, it's a big week, right? Halfway through the season, things can change, right? In red zone, the witching hour, right? Yep. I think you could say that about a season, and I think that can happen at any point. So big game for both teams, and sucks for the Bengals. I think they're still a year away, but they still got a bright future.
They kind of remind me of the Cardinals from last year, how we were saying, you know what, they're close to a playoff team, but with the way the AFC is laid out, they actually have still a decent shot of making the playoffs. But I think you're right. They're a year away. And they showed some flashes, which is, as we saw with the Cardinals, what's happening this year, that can really turn into something once you get a little bit of maturity on the roster. Just for them, it sucks to see, because the first couple of weeks, they looked so good. They looked very dominant, especially that Ravens game. It really got my hopes up for what they could possibly do this season. And it's not like everything is gone away. But two losses in a row to the Jets and the Browns, and now you're sitting, and I mentioned it in the last episode, like if the Browns won the game, they're the same record as the Bengals, which is
and now they're last in the division, which is,
I think as of now, and especially looking at that game moving forward, you kind of predict the Browns to finish ahead of the Bengals, and that leaves the Bengals, I think, might be interesting. They might end up still being last in the division just because the Steelers have
quite possibly a winning record. Like that's crazy.
The AFC North is absolutely ridiculous. But to get into my takeaway, and I've hinted at this for a couple weeks, saying, you know what, just maybe one more loss, and I'll finally pull this one out. Kyle Shanahan might be the problem in San Francisco. And it is something I never thought I would say after 2 years ago in their run to the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship. Since he took the reins in SF in 2017, he has a record of 32-40. If you take out that one season, the 13-3, which is also his only season he's ever gone over 500 as a head coach in San Francisco. Yep. 19-37. He has a 33% winning percentage. Similar coaches who have winning percentages around that area. Adam Gase with the Jets had a 28% winning percentage, and Matt Patricia with the Lions had a 30% winning percentage. So it is not good company to be in. And of course, you can't just throw out one successful season, but Shrikar mentioned a tweet, and it was something I was going to say. I think it sums it up perfectly. Maybe we have to start looking at that season as the anomaly and not the norm. And because with past years, we had the injury year last year. This year, people might put it on Jimmy G. The first year, you can put it on Jimmy G's injury. Maybe we start to realize that those years are really starting to outnumber the one year he went to the NFC Championship game. So maybe those years are the norm instead of the anomaly, like we had kind of thought. But one other thing I want to talk about, because you can point out records all you want. It's the doghouse. Like this season, I feel like anytime that you talk about the 49ers, you have to talk about the players that have just been thrown into the doghouse. And the way that Shanahan is just using his personnel, I absolutely hate it. I feel like he's a good coordinator. I feel like he draws up a pretty good offensive scheme. While in recent years, it has not lived up to its potential. And I feel like maybe he's not changing it as much as necessary, like other coaches do, specifically Sean McVay. The personnel decisions make absolutely no sense. First of all, we know how dynamic of a talent Brandon Ayuk is. We saw what he did last year in his rookie season. And yet for the first 8 weeks, especially the first 5, Kyle Shanahan just was refusing to use Brandon Ayuk, wouldn't say why, didn't put him out on the field, did not get him the football. And now, we've seen some flashes this year as well, if you look back to last week against Arizona. But for a team that couldn't win games, not using your better players, I just don't understand it. The way that he use the running back situation this year. It makes no sense to me either. He's giving Elijah Mitchell all of the carries when they drafted and they traded up to draft Trey Sermon, who was a much better in between the tackles runner. So and for someone who has used a committee for almost his entire career as a coach, wouldn't it just make sense to use Trey Sermon up the middle, in between the tackles, and use Elijah Mitchell for those outside zone runs? Kyle Shanahan, I'm starting to think he might not be a head coach. I'm starting to think he might be better off as a coordinator. He might be better off just handling one side of the ball, the offense, and not making personnel decisions, because they've been bad. The 49ers have been very bad since coming off that Super Bowl game. And I never thought I would say it, just because we were all heralding Kyle Shanahan as maybe one of the top coaches in the league, maybe the best young coach in the league. I'm starting to move off that steadily every week that they lose, especially losing to the Cardinals backups. I'm really moving off that opinion of him. And at some point, I know he bought himself some time, but you might have to think about firing him.
Perfect explanation. I think it was a great little spill. I mean, forget the last few weeks. I think I've been saying this since last year. Like, for me, the Super Bowl even, right? Niner fans would harp on me, but I put more of the blame on Kyle Shanahan than Jimmy G. I think I've been a Jimmy G supporter compared to, out of us three. I've always kind of defended him, and I still am going to defend him. He's had some good moments this year. I know there have been some bad throws, and there, we mentioned the chart. Remember how he was at the bottom left and best throws and stuff. But Kyle Shanahan, look, here's the problem with the Niners. And I think this is why long-term, I don't think he's the answer. I think the Niners are still they're fourth in their division in the stuff that matters the most, right? Quarterback, right? And even, again, Carroll, right? Maybe Pete Carroll and, Coach Shanahan kind of similar, but I think they're the organization as a whole has been the fourth best in the last few years. I think, the Cardinals, their general manager, I think it's Steve Keim. I believe that is his name.
I think so.
He's been terrific. Kudos to him. Again, Kingsbury has, one of my takeaways this week was that he should be the coach of the year favorite. So, he's been tremendous. Carroll, right, with Russell Wilson, I think that tandem itself, we've seen success from them. And obviously McVay, who hasn't had a losing season, right? Forget that. He's had a winning season every year of his career. He has been, I think if I were starting a team, he would probably be in, my three coaches that I would start a team with right now. He is just terrific. So I think that's my main thing with the Niners. I think they're just fourth. They're lagging behind long-term, which is crazy because the Rams don't even have draft picks. But yeah, I think
the Niners don't either. Think about it.
Yeah.
The Niners banked and they moved up for Lance and they traded away everything. And
I was not a fan of the move. All these Niner fans were getting so excited, and you got to think about it, right? If Trey doesn't win you a Super Bowl, right? Because you were at the time, you were 2 years removed from one of the best seasons the Niners have had in a very long time, right? This guy has to, this franchise is still pretty historic, and it's got 5 rings to him, and they've got pretty high expectations up here in the Bay. If he can't, win a Super Bowl or even become a franchise quarterback, that is a terrible, terrible trade, because you gave away 2 years of your future, 2 years of picks that are right now looking pretty good right now. I think the Niners are on pace to get a top 10 pick. So,
I think technically they're on pace to get someone else a top 10 pick.
Yeah, someone else to top it, which I believe is Miami.
Yep.
So again, just not a favorable look for SF. Long term, I think there's got to be some questions, which is sad for a historically great franchise that has always had some good years in every decade. 2000s not as much, but it sucks to see. And I think for Kyle Shanahan, we got to start questioning it, because I also am not a big fan of the way he's kind of addressed the media recently. Just again, a little shallow, a little bit of this passive aggressive type of mindset. Be a head coach, own up to it, or he has a couple times, but especially with the whole quarterback situation too. I think we were left in the dark a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's my thoughts on Kyle Shanahan. I think I've also been pretty expressive about it. Not the biggest fan. I've always said that he's a bit overrated, and I've received a lot of backlash for that. But I think it's time to really think about it. Even Shrikar, obviously he's not here. He did mention that he would give till mid 2022. I would think about maybe in the off season thinking about it.
I think they have to wait to see what Trey Lance does. Because they could save him.
He did buy him some time with that.
But I don't want to say it's an ego issue, because obviously we can't see inside the mind of Kyle Shanahan, but there have been a lot of things that have kind of stirred up that possible idea. He's just kind of had ever since the Super Bowl, and ever since things started to go awry in San Francisco, just a refusal to change the scheme, a refusal to kind of own up to some mistakes he's made, both personnel wise, both to the media. I don't know. It's just really weird. He's very different than a lot of NFL coaches. I feel like he's kind of in his own mold. And when things are going good, that's okay. And it makes sense. You can be a little bit, standoffish with the media. You can hold back some information when you're winning football games, but when you're not, the spotlight's really on you and it starts to look bad. And I know he had that great 13-3 season, but good coaches win more than 33% of their games, no matter the circumstances. I mean, if you gave Bill Belichick this roster, and we haven't even talked about the roster and how many talented players that he has access to using. It is would you say a top half roster in the NFL?
Yeah.
And he's
they've got a lot of
into
players that are just, they've got huge upside, right? I mean, like Nick Bosa, right? Eric Armstead, Fred Warner.
Yeah. I mean,
always look terrible. I mean, well, that's also, I think, the loss of Salah. I think that's just a compounding effect. But
it is. Yeah, that is true. But just with the roster, no matter the circumstances, you have to be able to win more than 30-ish% of your games to be able to be a head coach or to be considered even a good head coach. I said a couple of weeks ago, I think now he's in that bottom half. He's just slowly dropping more and more. He lost to Colt McCoy, to a team that didn't have J.J. Watt, DeAndre Hopkins, or I believe Chandler Jones either. It's looking bad in San Francisco. And we talked with Shrikar about it, and he literally said Kyle Shanahan is a bad coach. And so if coming straight from the mouth of a Niners fan, I think that tells you all you need to know. Obviously, it sucks. I'm not a Niners fan, but Shrikar is, and I know that we all live in the Bay. It's better around here when the Niners are doing well. People are happier. And a couple of years ago, we got that big glimmer of hope. And I just feel like after what we've seen right now, the glimmer of hope is, like I mentioned earlier, it's the anomaly. It's not the norm.
Agreed. Yeah. I think if we could switch it over to a team that a little bit more positive light, it's a team that we actually haven't had a segment on, and I've been trying to get it for the last few weeks, but now we're finally going to talk about it. It is the Tennessee Titans. And my takeaway is that they are the clear front runner in the AFC right now, but I think it's clear. So, to start the season, it's pretty ironic. So I've always been a Titans believer. I think, with Tannehill, I've been the biggest believer out of us three, especially, a couple of years ago with the run that they had. Even last year, again, Derrick Henry, I think, I'm so glad that they, gave him his own role, because I remember DeMarco started over him, and then they had the whole thing with Deion Lewis.
I remember the entire season.
Yeah, there was
football. I drafted Derrick Henry, and I had to watch Deion Lewis get more carries than.
They literally said that Deion Lewis was going to be their number one back over Derrick Henry, and that made me so mad because, with the Titans, just a lot of stuff, and they've had the 4, 9, and 7 seasons in a row, so they've always been a good team, And it's ironic because I did bet with Shrikar and another friend who's a Titans fan that the Colts would win the division. But I did say the Titans would still make the playoffs. And right now, obviously, it's looking like the opposite way. But look, the last 4 weeks, they have beaten, playoff teams that have looked good, right? The Chiefs, the Ravens, the Rams now. I mean, like they're racking up some really impressive. Sorry, the Bills, I forgot. They are racking up some really impressive wins. Yeah, the Colts one was also really good. I mean, like this. And
that game was kind of handed to them by a certain individual.
He had two bad series. It's fine. Okay, but and this Titans team, right, from top to bottom, I think. And I know the Derrick Henry loss might hurt them in the long term. I think when the game slows down, can you really control the clock, right, in January? But again, Ryan Tannehill, I think, is a phenomenal leader. He's just a winner, man. Like, I think we got to stop, this whole notion that, he can't be in this top 10. Like, he can't lead an offense. Well, he clearly can. And he doesn't have to go out there and throw 400 yards. Not every quarterback has to go out there and throw their way to a victory. I think it's just controlling the clock. Pre-snap, right? Line of scrimmage, find ways to keep drives alive. I think that's what makes a quarterback so good, playing to your offensive strengths. And that's what Tannehill has been able to do. And like we've mentioned, right? I know Jack was very high on AJ Brown fantasy-wise. I think overall, too, I think he's a top 10, wide receiver, still a top 10 talent. So he's been great. Julio, again, in and out of the lineup. But when he's there, you've got that downfield decoy. And then on defense, I think we need to talk about Kevin Byard. And I know, we love to talk about QBs. We love to talk about wide receivers. Those are like the it names, but I love looking at defensive rankings. I love making my own. And Kevin Byard has been the best safety in football. And I don't even think it's particularly close. He's been first team All Pro before. People don't even know that. He led the league with 8 picks in 2017. That was one of my favorite seasons from a safety ever. This guy has been phenomenal. Christian Fulton, a guy, he's kind of battling COVID right now, but he, great corner. Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, all these guys that, you just wouldn't hear about, but they contribute to this winning culture that Mike Vrabel has developed. And I think right now they sit 7-2. If you look at their schedule, like they still have to play the Texans twice, I believe. They've got, I think the only, games that they could lose are the Pats at home and the Steelers on the road. Like everything else is winnable. I mean, yeah, we've got the Saints game that we're going to have to pick in a minute, but this team, I think, is, just well coached, great organization that, in the last 5-6 years, and showing no signs of slowing down yet. So if I'm a team right now, I would fear the Titans long-term in the AFC.
Yeah, I think we've obviously focused a lot on Tannehill. The focus has got to go to the defense. They are what won that Rams game. They made Matthew Stafford look like Dwayne Haskins, look like Sam Darnold, look like Zach Wilson, Davis Mills. They made Matt Stafford look like a bad quarterback on multiple occasions, on multiple series in a row. Jeffrey Simmons had 3 sacks in the first half. Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned Kevin Byard, who's been great. I do agree that as of right now, they should be considered the AFC favorite, but I also don't believe that's saying too much considering what we've seen from some of these other AFC teams. And I know they just beat the Rams, but I think outlook for the rest of the season, I would still consider the Rams to be the better team, mostly because, and I think it took a perfect performance to barely beat the Rams. Like the defense.
I wouldn't say barely. I think the score, it was 12-point win, but I think the score was a little bit, I think
I feel like the game was a little bit closer than the final score ended up. But I mean, it took the perfect defensive performance. It took Jeffrey Simmons having 3 sacks in the first half. It took Matthew Stafford making just decisions he normally doesn't make.
The offense was pretty pedestrian though. Like
the Titans offense or the Rams offense?
Titans.
Yeah. So that was what I was going to get to. Ryan Tannehill attempted 1 pass over 15 yards and it was a pick. Yeah. Like I just don't think, especially when you mentioned when the game slows down, I don't think the Titans. I don't want to say that quite yet, but yeah, they're 7-2. They've beaten these good teams, but I feel like eventually it's not luck, but they're going to kind of run out of luck. They're good.
I think it might catch up to them. If we keep, I feel like this is what we've been doing. I think we've been in the last 4 weeks. I think we've been talking about the other team struggling rather than the Titans looking good. Think about it, right? Yep. Mahomes, when they shut him out 27-0 in the first half, we were all talking about, damn, what is Mahomes doing wrong? Like, what is this Chiefs offense? Why is it struggling so much? When they beat the Bills, all we talked about was that Josh Allen 4th down and how the Bills defense couldn't stop everyone despite being number 1 coming into the game. When, obviously the Colts, when they beat the Colts, everyone was talking about why Wentz sold that game, which is true, but they also played really well, right?
That's true.
And
they've played well, but it seems like they're more outlasting their opponents than beating them.
I think they beat the Rams. I think they beat the Chiefs.
I do think they beat the Rams, but I think it took almost a perfect performance, especially defensively.
Which is, I think that's why, the AFC, I think is, so here's what I think I'm learning about the AFC. And I think this is a little bit more general. I think they're beating each other up, right? That's true. So it's 11 teams that are over 5. That is insane to go into week 9 and have 11 out of 16 teams be over 500, right? It's not even like top heavy. It's just they're beating each other up, right? Like each team has had 2 losses. Sorry. Well, yeah, more than 2 losses. And each team has lost at home. I think that's a really key thing too. And they're all kind of facing each other. They're all putting, injuries are kind of piling up in these games and they're all kind of, and I believe I said this too, right? Like the winner of the AFC will probably be the team that is healthiest. Yep. And right. So it's just, that's why this conference in particular, and the NFC has kind of switched over. It's been a lot more top heavy. I think it's going to really come down to like these games. I'm really like, that's why the playoffs are going to be a lot of fun this year because it might not be the best team that represents the AFC or the NFC.
But they will be battle tested for sure. Like they're going to be fully trained to be able to take on whoever's in the NFC.
No doubt. But I think number 1 right now should be Tennessee. And it is how it is in the standings, but I think they've shown a lot more than what their record says. I think they've locked up the division already. There's nothing Indy can do that, and again, Jacksonville and Texans are bottom feeders. So I think the Titans they're chilling up there. They're going to get a playoff game at home. And that Tennessee crowd, you guys should be excited. I know Derrick Henry's out, but he could come back. And oh my God, if he comes back, fresh legs, you're giving a guy of his caliber 8 weeks of rest.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God, I'm nervous. That's why I'm saying, like, because I'm pretty confident he's going to come back. I like just even thinking about that now. I'm nervous if I'm.
I mean, he's a warrior. I feel like he's got to come back. I would agree with you on the takeaway part that they should be considered the top in the AFC right now. Do you consider them the AFC favorites to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl?
I think knowing that Derrick Henry can come back in January, right? I'm actually going to say yes. I think because when you're talking about a guy, again, I didn't even want to mention this in terms of the takeaway, but now I'm thinking about it, right? You're getting a guy like that, fresh legs in January, right? Where everyone's kind of beaten up. And this guy's got 10 weeks to really, kind of rehab, get his, body right, upper body, arms, right, legs. Oh my God. I mean, I would be terrified. And then also, right, like Julio, honestly, there are some games where if he's just not, 100%, you could just be like, you know what, just don't play him because they have so many winnable games on their schedule.
Yeah.
That you can really wait to have him at full strength. I'm nervous. The Ravens, again, I think that would probably be their biggest test, right? Because that's the one team they won't have to play going into the playoffs. Other than that, though, I think, they've really studied each of the teams that they've had to play. They've had to play teams that they're probably going to see in January. And they're going to have them at home, right? Because they did beat the Bills and the Chiefs at home. And everyone's going to say, oh, but you have them at home. They're probably going to get the bye. And
to be honest, I feel like just with the rest of their schedule, I mean, they play the Texans twice and the Jags once again, right? You're right. I feel like they're going to get the bye. I don't know why. I don't think I can say that if I had to pick a team to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl right now, I would pick them. I feel like I can see them. Even if they do get the bye, I feel like if a team like Cincinnati rolls into Tennessee, I feel like they could knock off the Titans. I don't know why. Wow. I feel like it's a pretty good matchup. I feel like Baltimore could beat them.
You think Cleveland could go on?
No, I definitely think Cleveland could. I still think I have Cleveland up there among the first couple teams that come to mind when I think of who I think could represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I feel like the Bills would beat them again. I think the Chargers could put up a pretty good fight. It's tough. I really like the Titans. I've been a fan of Tannehill for a long time. I had him as a top 10 quarterback coming into the year. Yep. I think their defense is great. We mentioned all those guys, and they're the favorite right now. But I don't know. I feel like I can't agree with you on the fact that if I had to pick a team
right now,
best guess to represent AFC in the Super Bowl, I don't think I could pick Tennessee.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are saying. I think they're still riding on the kind of the favorites coming into the year, which is fine. Right, we still got 8 weeks to go, but
the Henry news could swing me though. I feel like it could. Which
all
is funny
I'm saying is watch out for those guys in Nashville because, I'm nervous as a fan of a team that's in that AFC race.
I can't believe they got through this stretch of all of the games that they had to play.
I remember I was saying like the Colts were kind of straggling, and I was like, you know what, Tennessee's got this hard ass schedule. I think they can come back in the division. They surpassed every expectation.
They rattled off every win. I mean, it was amazing. So
4-0 in that stretch. 4-0,
unbelievable. Yeah. And I believe it goes. I believe it goes back to 5-0. If you go, it was at Kansas City. They beat. In random order: Kansas City, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Buffalo, and there was one more, right?
Yeah, I think we're forgetting the one more that they beat up on. I can pull it up really quick, but yeah, you're right. That's why I'm saying I think 4 is a little bit less than what I had anticipated.
Yeah, I believe because they were 2-2, right? Because they lost. So they lost to the Seahawks and lost
the Jets. They lost to the Jets and they won 5 straight.
Oh wait.
No. The one that they beat, I believe, was Wait, hold on. I'm trying to.
You said they're 7-2 right now, right?
Oh, but it was the Jags. I think it was the Jags.
It was the Jags. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was part of their.
Did you say they're 7-2?
Yeah.
I want to say that's wrong, right? No, they beat the Seahawks. They beat the Seahawks in overtime. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Well, obviously, I'm just going to take it. The Jets beat the Titans. So does that make them
without AJ Brown and Julio? Don't get ahead of yourself.
Does that make them the best? Oh, but the Jets didn't have Mike White yet, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think 5 of their 7 wins have been against teams that have made the playoffs last year. That's pretty impressive.
It's amazing. So even if we can't consider them the favorite for the Super Bowl right now, I feel like a little golf clap up to what the Titans have been able to do this year. But speaking of Mike White, I feel like that's a good transition into our fantasy start sit segment. Because my fantasy start for this week, again, a player that if you have the ability to, I think you jam into your lineup. You don't think twice about it. It's Michael Carter, running back for the Jets. With Mike White under center, Michael Carter has been just such a great fantasy running back because Mike White is just dump off central. And especially with you're getting a matchup this week against the Buffalo Bills, where I expect Buffalo to win by a sizable margin, which should mean that the Jets are going to be passing the ball a lot. And with Mike White behind under center, we saw it in the Bengals game, and we saw it in the start, at least, of the Indianapolis game. Mike White likes to dump the ball off. So it's going to be Elijah Moore, Jamison Crowder, and mostly Ty Johnson, Michael Carter out of the backfield. I think Carter is matchup independent, which is something you don't get a lot in fantasy football. You see it with guys this year like DeAndre Swift, where you're on just such a bad team that you're going to get a lot of touches, and valuable ones, especially with Carter out of the backfield, catching passes. So I think if you have the ability to, you start him, throw him in your flex, or you throw him in your running back spot. Some people might panic because the end of the game against Indianapolis it wasn't the best stat line he's put up this year, but I feel like you don't panic. You keep him in your lineup. He's my start.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. I actually drafted him in fantasy in like 4 leagues. Because I was very high on Michael Carter coming in. Again, we've talked about it, I think last week or one of the pod episodes, Jack and I, how we love the pick. It was a 4th rounder out of UNC, but my start, I haven't even told Jack this. It's going to surprise him. It's Hunter Renfrow from the Raiders. I thought that was just, when I saw that, I was like, damn, I gotta take that one because, again, Carr, my one knock on him, as much as I love him, and I think we talked about it before the show, that how much, we've grown to like Derek Carr. My one knock on him is he does target guys a little bit too much. He gets a little bit too fixated on guys, and especially Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. But hey, if you have Renfrow in fantasy, that's going to help you. And especially without, guys like Henry Ruggs, just out there, who's kind of been the other guy who is taking targets away. I think Renfrow is just such an easy guy to grab reception. So if you have him in PPR, I think you start him against this KC defense that just isn't good. And I think Renfrow is going to see a little bit of linebackers, especially him being in the slot. And if you got Sorensen on Hunter Renfrow, good luck, dude. Like, good luck. I hate Daniel Sorensen, especially because of that helmet thing he had on Rashard Higgins in the playoffs. So please, Raiders, please find a way to get Renfrow on Sorensen so he could absolutely torch him and make Sorensen look silly like Lazard did last week. But yeah, I'd say you start that guy. I think he's going to get some catches. I think he's had above 6 points in every single game this year. So
I want to say he's been double digit in almost every except one in PPR leagues.
And that was the one he had 6.6. So he's basically a high floor, not really a high ceiling, but
he's got no ceiling. He's the exact same guy every year, every week, unless he scores a touchdown, which rarely happens.
Yeah. So I would say, if you want a guy that is going to get you points and you just need that, especially on a Sunday 5:20 game or 8:20 if you're in the East Coast, I'd say you start him.
He's kind of a guaranteed 12 points from the flex spot in PPR leagues. And I think that's the distinction that needs to be made. Don't start him in a non-PPR league.
No,
there's better options, but
there's probably better options, but it is a favorable matchup. And I think he does get, a decent amount of yards and maybe a touchdown against this KC.
Yeah. We'll see if he gets in the end zone. Obviously that boosts his stock up so much. Shrikar's start this week was
Carson Wentz.
Walk it to him, Wentz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. They're playing the Jaguars this week. One thing that if I was going to make a little counterpoint to Shrikar's start is you might have them running the ball a lot. But even we saw that last week, and Wentz was still able to convert in the red zone and get some passing touchdowns and rack up some points. I'm starting Wentz in one league this week over Kyler Murray just in case. If Murray.
I'm doing the exact same thing.
Yeah. Literally. If Murray plays, it'll be more of a game time decision, but I don't know. Yeah. I feel good about Wentz this week against Jacksonville. So I think it definitely makes sense as a start. Probably rank Carson Wentz as like a top 12 quarterback this week. Just chalk it up to the matchup. My fantasy sit this week.
He beats on bad teams.
He does. He definitely does.
So start him. Yeah.
Yeah. And definitely start Jonathan Taylor because this dude's going to go off again. Fantasy sit this week is going to be DJ Moore. And that it may seem crazy to say, considering that a lot of people still consider DJ Moore as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy, just because of that crazy start he had to the season where he was just putting up, he was a PPR nightmare. But since that start, he's been the wide receiver 65 when it comes to points per game in fantasy football. Sam Darnold has been bad, but PJ Walker is worse. The Arizona defense is one of the more surprising defenses we've seen this year. He could get shadowed by Byron Murphy.
Yeah.
And while the volume that he was getting from Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers offense was really good and very valuable to start the season, I just feel like you can't say the same thing about the Panthers, this offense, DJ Moore. I think that you kind of have to start looking into the numbers a little bit more as opposed to being clouded by the way you started the season. Of course, if you can't afford, don't start it's interesting. Would I start a guy like Hunter Renfrow over DJ Moore? I think I probably would.
I would.
I mean, you go down the list, like if you're starting guys like Elijah Moore or like Rashad Bateman, like some of those guys that maybe are more of those waiver wire targets, maybe you still lean with Moore. You bank on the upside, but I just feel like there is definitely not the upside that was there at the beginning of the season. Plus, this offense gets Christian McCaffrey back. I just feel like it's kind of an easy sit choice. And it's a hard one to like actually do with your roster because it's a tough pill to swallow. But I think you have to sit DJ Moore, and I think we can't consider him wide receiver 1, maybe even not a wide receiver 2 in fantasy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, it's been disappointing, especially because I do have him in the league. But my sit of the week, I know this one last week too, he didn't play it. This one, I'm going to stay with the Cardinals-Panthers game. It's going to be DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's going to play, and I know you would want to put him in just because, again, kind of the name that he brings and considering where he was drafted. But look, stay away from a guy like that. I know just one, the injury concern, and two, and even if he does play, right, like he's going to probably get shadowed by Stephon Gilmore, and he's not. Look, this Cardinals offense, it's got 5 valid pass catchers, 5 like that. That's so many. And even if, Colt McCoy or Kyler, whoever's under center, they're going to have a plethora of options to spread the ball to. Right. So, and I feel like, especially with Arizona, I feel like they're going to run the ball a lot more, right? Get James Conner going, even out the backfield as a receiving back. He had some good receiving touches last week. Just stay away from Cardinals receivers in general. I would say it's hard to really pinpoint one. But if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't go, maybe Christian Kirk. He did have a good game last week, but like again, I wouldn't start D-Hop.
So James Conner in PPR leagues had like 40.1 points last week. Is he going over or under 20 points this week?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I'm starting him in 2 leagues, so I really don't want to jinx it. But I think 20 points is a big margin. I really just depends on. I think he used to be a very touchdown dependent back.
He still is. I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's like
now
every week.
But the thing is, now he's going to get volume.
That's
because
true.
Chase Edmonds isn't there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, you could definitely bank on the over, but I'm just going to say under. So I jinx it. Yeah. Knock on wood for that. He gets over 20 points. It'll help me in a lot of leagues, but yeah, I think I think that's a good, here's what I would say. I think 20.5 is a good over under to put for him. And I think boom, like, how in ESPN they do the boom bust potential. I think 20 points is the perfect place to say. If he goes over, that's a definite boom. And if he goes like under like 12, it's a bust because considering the volume that he's going to get.
One interesting sit I was thinking about this week was actually Aaron Jones. And I mean, that's just crazy to say since he's like the running back 6, I think, on the season or something like that. But in recent weeks, especially last week, he's been pretty disappointing. And what I would chalk up last week too is the fact that without Aaron Rodgers, they needed to protect Jordan Love. They used Aaron Jones in pass protection so much because he's clearly the better pass protecting back compared to AJ Dillon. So I feel like if Aaron Rodgers does not play, Aaron Jones is a very interesting set. Like in one league, as of right now, I'm kind of assuming Rodgers doesn't play, so I'm starting Dearness Johnson over Aaron Jones. And it sucks. I mean, I've got that team. That's a pretty
good back.
The team, that team. I have DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Jones, and I picked up Dearness Johnson this week. And it's like, I don't know, it's a pretty tough one. But I feel like if you have the ability to, like I would say, I think I do in that league, you maybe start to think about sitting Aaron Jones if you don't have Aaron Rodgers playing. Streetcar sit this week was Adam Thielen going against the Baltimore Ravens, the Minnesota Vikings, or no, the Los Angeles Chargers going against. They're going to get Dalvin Cook going. And I think that's where the rationale was for Streetcar is they're going to run the ball a lot, less targets for Adam Thielen, a disappointing week last week because, he's the wide receiver 2 in that offense.
He garnered all the double teams by Marlon and I believe not Deshaun Elliott because he's injured. I think it was Tavon Young. No, I forget who. They might have put Fuller on him. I don't remember, but they double teamed him so much. And if you look at the throws that Kirk Cousins had thrown him, he had 7 targets, and 4 out of those missed ones were just awful throws. So
it's like Baker to Odell.
Yes, exactly. But worse because it's Kirk Cousins to a guy that I really like versus Baker to a guy that I don't like. So that made me really mad. But yeah, I guess I can see the reasoning for Adam Thielen. I'm still going to start him because, he's one of my favorite receivers in the game. But, I can see his reasoning.
Yeah. So again, like we say every week, if you have more of these fantasy start questions, you're watching this on YouTube, just leave them down in the comment section below, your specific ones, because we'd be happy to get back to you guys, whether you're watching this as a full episode or as a clip on YouTube. Just leave them down there in the comment section. You can also go over to our Instagram, and we'll try and put up a poll asking you guys for your specific start decisions, because we want to get you guys some
our record's
wins.
Pretty good. We've got a pretty good resume so far.
Pretty good track record. We started this 2 weeks ago, and I feel like we're over like 75%.
We've only missed one, and that was the Cook's garbage time.
Yeah,
I think that's the only one.
Yeah, I don't think I forget who my start was last week. Taysom Hill, he didn't play, so
yeah. So like we were all like 1-1 because the guys that we had didn't didn't play. Like Kyler didn't.
That's
play.
Exactly what I said. I said start Taysom Hill if he plays, and I don't know what they're doing with Trevor Siemian. Like, why are you starting Trevor Siemian?
Yeah, I mean, hey, he scored like he came back down 16. So
that's true.
Yeah, so we'll see.
That's another perfect transition, actually, because we're going to start picks, and they're actually the first game that we're picking today. Pretty good.
Can we recap how Jack lost the week?
I did lost the week. I lost the week by 1 point.
We're coming back.
6 games above you, though, right?
We're coming back. I told you, I'm coming back.
Gradually.
Horrendous, forgettable performance.
That was still, I think, maybe my favorite part of this entire season so far. But yeah, so I think I'm up by 1. Fans, you guys are tied with Streetcar in second, 1 game behind me, and East down there 6 games behind me, but still time to get back. We've got almost half the season left, so there's plenty of time. We've got 5 games on the docket today. The rest, of course, on our Instagram every week in the polls. You can find that down in the description. Saints versus Titans. We get 2 teams. We just talked about Simeon. We talked about the Titans a lot. Are you sticking with your AFC favorites?
Hell yeah, I'm sticking with the AFC favorites. I got the Titans in this game. I think here's my thing, right? The Saints, I think that was a demoralizing loss. That just that because you beat the Bucs and you go in against a divisional rival and you kind of lose like that. That Matty Ice throw to Cordell was nice. That was Matty nice.
Yeah.
Forget Matty Ice. That was Matty nice. So yeah, Tennessee versus the Saints. I got the Titans here. I think they're gonna bounce, coming back home. It's that crowd's gonna be roaring. I think the Saints will have some decent fans there just because it's pretty close by. But yeah, I got the Titans in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Titans. I'll play devil's advocate for a minute, though. I think that one thing that could really limit the Titans' ability to win this game is the fact that the offensive line for the Saints has been pretty good this year. I feel like they might limit the pass rush that we saw really explode last week within the Tennessee game against the Rams. But I think as of right now,
the Titans to their defensive line and the Titans' offensive line.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
So if they
didn't see that, we honestly didn't see that make as much of an impact last week, and they overcame their offense not playing super well, and they still won that football game. I think this will be. I don't want to. It's not a lopsided game for sure, and I'm balancing out whether it will be low scoring or high scoring. I feel like it might start out low scoring, and the Titans might eventually pull away. I've got them winning this game.
Break the game open with just this one big play.
Probably that's kind of it feels like it's going to go into half being a low scoring game, and then just kind of burst out the gates, and probably both teams score some garbage time points and ends up around
bet the under then on the first half points. I guess
I feel like it can make sense, but then again, that we're going to be wrong. We're just jinx the crap out of it. Streetcar's also going with the Titans. Browns Patriots is our next game.
I'm going last.
You're going last?
Yeah.
Last?
Let's give Streetcar's pick because you obviously know who he's going with because he's picked against the Browns, I believe, the last 5 or 6 weeks in a row. So you want to reveal it or do you want?
Yeah. Key thing is Nick Chubb looks like he might be out for this game. We are offering contingency, which I guess we will offer to you fans as well. So once we see with that Nick Chubb decision, if you feel like switching your pick, you can go with that. Streetcar is going with New England right off the bat. I think he said that even if Nick Chubb is back, he still feels like he's going to go the Patriots.
Shocker.
They're at home. So obviously it's tough to pick against the Patriots at home, and it's tough to pick against the Browns seeing their track record this season, but I want to be hopeful. I want to be able to pick the Browns. I still think they're a really good football team. And to be honest, I feel like even without Chubb, the Browns have shown that they can run the ball. Whether they can do it against the Patriots, it's a different story. So I'm still going to be looking at that contingency. If Chubb is out, maybe I'll reconsider my decision a little bit, but I still have faith in Dearness Johnson. I'm going with Cleveland. It would be a big win, kind of kickstart the down the stretch run to end the season. I hope the Browns win.
Okay. I'm really nervous. like, I said last week that that was the biggest game of the season. It would be a really telling tale. This one is also really big just because I think it's against a really good coach. This is probably the best coach that Kevin Stefanski has gone with head to head, right? Since Andy Reid last year, or sorry, Andy Reid this year. So, it would be a great telling test to see how Kevin Stefanski can match up against Bill Belichick's defense, right? Of a defense that has looked, just lights out. And JC Jackson, I think the best part about this is that we have so many receivers where Baker can spread the ball and doesn't have to, think twice about Odell versus JC, right? And I think that's such a big thing to think about going into this, game. Key will have to be to contain Matthew Judon. That guy lines up all over the line of scrimmage, and I'm very scared of him, considering that Jack Conklin is still out. But, I think the Browns are kind of going in this with say hey, now we can really focus on just our team. Think about it, right? Now we haven't people have media's fixated on just OBJ, not the Browns. I think that is just huge. That is a huge, huge thing that I've been trying to say for the last, I don't even know how long, over a year and a half, but, to kind of sum it up on this game, right? I know there's contingency, but I'm going to go with Cleveland as well. I think this is just a huge morale boost. If they do win, knock on wood that they do win, got to knock on wood for them. So yeah.
I think one of the interesting things is it's talks about all the time. Bill Belichick, when they go in and they defensive game plan for a game, they just go and they take away the best part of your offense. And I feel like now that you've got OBJ.
What is the best
you have? There is it's so spread very evenly, especially with Chubb out too. I mean, it's going to be the run game. I feel like they'll probably just key in on the run game, but so maybe then it's valuable that Chubb is out. It doesn't matter quite as much. I just feel like this Browns team, it seems very even keeled on offense. I hope they can continue that. It's what we saw without Odell last year for some reason. Whether you can explain it or not, it seems like it's the truth.
I was throwing my hands up like this the entire game because I was like, wait, you mean to tell me that Baker's better without Odell? And all these guys are saying Baker sucks? I don't know. I was trying to tell you, but
it makes no sense, but it just seems like it's reality. So I think it's kind of what we have to go with. The next game, Vikings and Chargers. We mentioned it earlier. Shrikar could start again. He's actually going with Minnesota. He's picking the upset in this one. Of course, Chargers, maybe the worst run defense in the league. Minnesota, they run the ball pretty well. Dalvin Cook hasn't had a big blow-up game yet. He might this week. Whether he plays or not, I'm still not sure considering the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I think he will. I think this, again, it's just you need more time for this to really sort out.
Yeah, we gotta see some of the facts come out before we decide to talk about it. But he's going with Minnesota. I'm sticking with the Chargers. I think last week was such a big win for the Chargers. Coming off that loss against New England, if they lost that game, their season can kind of start to spiral. They'd look a little bit more like the old Chargers, but to stand in and to just hold the ground against the Eagles, eke out a win, I think that was absolutely huge for the Chargers. It'll be big momentum. And I just have more faith. Right now, it is so hard to have faith in the Vikings considering what's happened to them in past weeks. I said that they had the matchup advantage last week. I even said about midway through the game, oh, dang, I should have gone with Minnesota. But of course they do what they've done for a while under Zimmer, and they just blew the game.
Yeah, look, Vikings fans are calling for Zimmer's head. I agree with them. Again, this team culture is it's kind of shattered. I mean, I don't know if I talked about it on the pod. I might have. When Dalvin Cook stiff-armed a Dallas Cowboys defender, I think it was Jabril Cox back a couple of weeks ago, nobody hyped him up on the sideline. Everyone was just like, okay. That's crazy. If you look at when Derrick Henry did it to Josh Norman, did you see the Titans sideline? They went berserk, right? Any big play, you should see a team, rally around your guys. And I think that's kind of just a trickle-down effect from Mike Zimmer. And again, if the players don't have confidence in your coach, that's just a bad sign going forward. They'll have to travel across country from Baltimore all the way back to LA, right? So it's a 2-game kind of road trip, which is never favorable for a team like this. And I think for the Chargers, a little bit injuries on the back end, but Derwin James has been healthy and he's been playing like a top 2 safety in football. So I'm going with the Chargers as well. I think the key for them is to just, control the time possession. I did watch Justin Herbert's interview with Colin Cowherd. I believe it was yesterday. My God. I mean, I've seen him now 3 interviews. He is one of the most humble and mature quarterbacks I have ever seen. Ever been. For someone this young to just talk so, eloquently and just, answer every question with appropriate detail. He was always a smart guy coming out of high school and college, 4.0 guy. Just, again, talented dude. Wish nothing but the best for him.
And he's pretty good at football. So that might give them a slight advantage in this game. The next game, Eagles, Broncos. I mentioned when we were talking off camera, I hate this game. I mean, it's such a tough pick. We've seen the Broncos are on a roll the past couple of weeks.
They're 5-4. I don't even they still have a chance in that, kind of wild card, even division race, I guess. Like, I don't even know.
A couple of weeks ago, we were saying that, after they lost to the Broncos or to the Ravens, and then their next loss, I forget to who, they
lost saying, 4 in a row.
They cannot. We were saying they can't beat any good teams. They've only beaten bad teams, and then the last couple of weeks they've beaten some pretty good teams, especially Dallas being the main one. I was leaning the Eagles before we started to talk about this. I think I'm gonna go with Denver. I just feel like they're on a roll right now. It is gonna come back and bite me in the butt. I already know. Shigar's going with the Broncos as well. It's just they're on a roll right now. I feel like right now I trust them a little bit more than the Eagles. If Devonta Smith can get going though, like we've seen last game, it'll be a huge matchup this time. Him and Patrick Surtain. It'll be super entertaining. But that
two Alabama guys going at it like they did in practice all those times.
Yeah. We'll see about that one. I'm going with Denver right now. I feel like no matter which one I pick, I'm going to be wrong because honestly, I don't trust either of these teams.
As unfortunate as it is, I would love to disagree with Jack, but I'm also going Denver. They're at home, Mile High Air, young quarterback. You know what that means, right? I always favor the Mile High Air against a young QB. I think that was kind of the doing end when I picked Washington over Denver. So last time, so I'm going to go with Denver here. Also, 1 out of the 2, Devonta Smith and Patrick Surtain. Surtain's been playing like a top 10 corner overall, right? And Smith's been playing like a top 10 rookie. So I think Surtain's been playing really, really good.
Yeah, he's been super consistent. He's just not making mistakes. It's like
he's had to play against some really good receivers that, as unfortunate as it is, Devonta Smith's a great guy, but just receivers are better than him right now. So I'm probably going to lean on Surtain in this matchup, and I'm also going to lean to Denver here, which really sucks. I really wanted you to go with Philly. But yeah.
We got a big primetime game. This game could decide the AFC West already in the season. It's the matchup that we've been kind of waiting for to see. It's the Chiefs and the Raiders. And right now, the Raiders going through a lot of turmoil. The Chiefs going through a lot of stuff on the field. Just can't get it going. It's a huge matchup. I'll go last. You can go first.
Can we go with Streetcar's pick first?
Yeah, Streetcar's
going with the Chiefs.
So Streetcar's going with the Chiefs.
This one is really tough. Look, because, in a game like this last year, what I would have done? I would have done my signature, my homeboy, and I would have said the Chiefs are going to win this. But this is look, when is the last time the Chiefs have genuinely looked good? Like through all phases. I think it was the Washington game, which was like 5 weeks ago.
And they didn't even look good for the majority of that game.
For like the first half. Then the second half, they just steamrolled them and then beat them like 30-13 or whatever. This one's really tough. It's at LV. Look, and I think this is where my new found fandom of Carr is going to be tested. I'm going to go with the Raiders right now. I think as a heartbreaking loss to New York, I think they're really going to focus in. Now they're a week removed from the whole situation. Really, set up, focus on these next couple of games, get that loss out of the head. That was kind of the whole heartbreak. Take your anger out on a division team that has, kind of memed you and laughed at you for the last few years, right? So I think this is a huge morale boost for them. If they win this game, I think they make the playoff. I think this is a game that can really set forward a great kind of run by the Raiders and knock off. Because remember, we talked about this. They always start off hot and then just burn out, right? 2 straight 6-4 starts, and they just have fizzled out to 7-9 or 8-8. So I'm going to go with the Raiders here. I'm really hoping that Derek Carr can step up like this because I want to see this man succeed, especially after what he's gone through this year.
Yeah, I think last week, obviously, it's hard to look past that Giants game, but I feel like there's a couple explanations, of course, just with all the turmoil going on in the facilities and stuff like that. But also, while Henry Ruggs, he was having an okay season catching the ball, the ability that he brings, he's basically the only fast player on that offense.
Renfro's not going to outrun you. I'm sorry.
That is Brian Edwards.
Yeah.
Darren Waller's is fast, but he's still a tight end. You can't really stretch the field with a tight end. Henry Ruggs stretched the field. He opened up so much for them. And the Deshaun Jackson signing, once Ruggs was released and Deshaun Jackson was out there, I said that was a move the Raiders absolutely needed to make. I think they realized it too. And it's, you see some players, they come in and you say, oh, well, they've got to learn the scheme first. They're going to tell Deshaun Jackson to line up, and run straight as fast as he
Yeah,
can.
he literally is brought in on limited snaps to just run down the field. That's all he has to do. Like he would hop in the Rams games for literally like 5 or 10 snaps. They'd say, you know what? We're gonna throw you maybe 2 balls, right? 2 deep balls a game. Just make what you can do with it. That's literally what they do. So
yeah. So I think that is going to open up the Raiders offense. Because I mean, we saw last week, it was bad and they lost the Giants, but also the Chiefs run defense has just been terrible this year. And I think Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake can probably both have good days on the ground, assuming that
maybe a fantasy start, Jack. Maybe a fantasy.
Yeah, honestly, you might be able to start both of them.
Yeah.
Just with the Chiefs, we say it every week. I just don't know if I can trust them quite yet. As much as we want to go and say, you know what, it's the Chiefs, it's Mahomes, let's do it. It just has not been the same this year.
They got very lucky with that Giants win, and then a huge break with Aaron Rodgers not playing.
I mean and they still barely won. That game was horrible on both sides. It was just bad. So yeah, I just as much as I want to go with the Chiefs, and say, dude, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna walk this off. It's okay. I don't know, man. Something's different with the Chiefs this year, and every week we just look to see, okay, is this the week? Nope. Is this week? Nope.
Yeah.
So I feel like another one of those times. This is not going to be the week. I think the Raiders win it, and good for the Vegas, good for all Raiders fans, because they deserve. After what the Chiefs have done to them the last couple of years and everything, and just dominating that division, I feel like the Raiders fans will be very, very happy. Also, this game being in Vegas, huge bonus. As opposed to being an Arrowhead. If it was an Arrowhead, maybe I lean the other way, but I got the Raiders in this one. That's kind of all we got to talk about. Anything on the docket? Anything else you want to talk about from last week, this week, before we wrap the episode up?
Let's knock on wood that Carson Wentz has a good game. We already knocked on the Browns winning. Should we knock on the Jets losing? Probably will anyway.
Dude, Mike White's back on the lineup.
If Mike White can beat Buffalo,
what does Mike White have to do against Buffalo to earn the starting job?
Look, if I'm being, that is true, because, we can't just bank on one week, but he looked really good against Indianapolis, the snaps he played.
He did.
I don't know what would be enough for him to earn it. I think if if he outplays Josh, maybe, puts him in within a possession, right? Because it's at New York, I'm pretty sure, right? So,
yeah.
So
either way, it's pretty close.
Yeah. If he, I think, I don't know what the spread is, but I might actually take if they're favored by more than 10, the Bills, I want
to say it's like 12.5.
I might take the Jets plus 12.
This is the first time in a while that the Bills have been favored by double digits over the Jets. And the only other 3 times they've been favored by double digits against the Jets, they've outright lost.
Yeah. So
I thought that was funny.
Here's a betting rule for all you bettors out there. Always bet on a home team that's like favored to lose by more than 10. This year it's been undefeated.
Really?
Jags, Jets,
Texans.
Yeah, if they are favored to lose and it's at home, do it. So I think
that's interesting.
Yeah.
The Jets are going to lose this week, but I think it's interesting. Mike White, he has a possibility to make it a tough decision for Robert Saleh, and with Mekhi Becton coming back into the lineup soon, with Corey Davis, I think he's going to play this week. The Jets could be in an interesting spot to kind of turn into maybe that Dolphins team from a couple of years ago, win some games down the stretch. I still think
they're not going to have a winning season next year.
No. I still think I said that coming into this year, 6 wins was what I was expecting.
Yeah, I actually agreed with you on that one.
Do you think it's still possible?
What are they at? 2-6? I don't know.
They're 2-6, and their wins are against the 7-2 Titans and the 5-3, 5-4. Yeah, Bengals.
Yeah. Nah, I don't know. It's tough.
You don't think so?
Tough to see. Yeah. I mean, well, you should probably not hope for that. You probably want a better draft pick going into next year.
That's true. And we need the Seahawks to keep losing games. I need Russell Wilson to.
I mean, I will say this. I will throw this out there for, if anyone who's still watching. I think one of 3 teams will make the NFC playoffs. I believe I said Atlanta, the Giants, and the Seahawks. So maybe if we could put that up as a poll, which team you guys think out of those 3 would make the playoffs? Maybe we could do that as a YouTube kind of.
Yeah, let us know down in the comment section. I feel like no matter what, that team's going to get blown out by the Rams or the Bucs.
I'm rooting for Atlanta, man. I love to see them back in there. Especially, I'm rooting for Cordell Patterson.
Let's get Matty Ice back into the playoffs one more time before the Falcons move off of him this offseason. But I think that's all we have for you guys. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Like I say every week, if you're on YouTube, please consider hitting the like button, the subscribe button, leave us those comments that we asked about. And you can go down, find anything you need in the description. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, you can subscribe to the show, go down, mark it as play, download the episodes, and leave a 5-star review if you really enjoyed it. We'll be back next week. Hopefully Streetcar's back. I don't think he's going to be put on IR. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. Good to go for next week. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next time.